Hey, what's up guys? I'm making this update to my last video because I had the idea of drawing in my interpretation of the picture just in case some people were not able to see what I was describing in my last video. So this is definitely a part 2 to the last video, and it's definitely worth watching that one before watching this one because you can see the original photo that I started with, and you can see how I increased the light and color of this photograph to get what we're working with now. So just to show you, this is Autodesk Sketchbook. I'm not the most familiar, but this was a free download from the App Store, if I recall correctly, and this is the free version of it. So I just wanted to show you what I'm using, and what I've done is I've outlined actually almost everything in this picture, but then I went back so you can see step by step what I outlined. So right here is my attempt at outlining what I was seeing as what I was interpreting as this short wall that is running along the darker hallway behind it. Okay, so this strip right here that my cursor is moving over would be the top of this wall. It's like a 3-foot wall the way that I'm interpreting it. It's like 3 feet high, and this is the top of it looking down on it. Okay, now this would actually be the vertical side of the wall as it connects with the top of the wall and connects with the floor. This is the vertical wall in between, and this is just the floor, which would just seem to be a round floor. Also, I do think that there is some size distortion just because the photographer is standing closer to everything on the right side of the photograph. So I do think that that's causing the right side to look bigger just for being closer to the camera. But I do believe that everything in this picture is round as well. So now I'm just going to redo the outlines that I've already drawn in before I started making this video. Alright, so here I've drawn in the upper edge of this open air hallway as I'm interpreting it. So the hallway itself would be this dark area in the middle. This line would be like the overhang over this hallway, where this would just be open air, and then this would be the short wall that is partially enclosing the hallway. And this is just my interpretation of the picture, guys. I'm not saying that this is what it is, but figured I'd draw out my interpretation of what it could be. Okay, so this outline over here is this is the shape that I described as possibly being a doorway in my original video. I don't know what else to say. It looks like a dark opening, and it's got some sort of a polygonal shape to it, possibly with rounded edges or rounded points. One thing that's going to be a theme now for the rest of this upper section, one theme is that I think there's a cloudy vapor floating across everything, which is why the lights look cloudy and why they look different from each other. Alright, now I started to outline the windows, these 6-sided windows, which again seem distorted from the location of the photographer most likely, but also from they also seem distorted from the actual curve of the structure as well. So this is outlined as clouds, it looks like to me. It looks like that cloudy vapor floating by. And then I started to attempt to outline these very vague square shapes that I saw running along the back of the wall. So these don't look like they're necessarily the most accurate, and I also don't see how these squares can coincide with these lights, these 6-sided lights. But like I said, everything seems to have a vapor running across it, which is why it's so unclear. So I gave it a shot just to show what this row of dark squares could be. And this one is a little bit taller because it kind of looked that way. And I thought of redoing it, but then I thought, you know what, it might be a taller doorway, so I'll just leave it at that. Alright, that's about as much structure as I attempted to outline here so far, but I'm also just showing that a lot of this seems like purple cloud vapor, so I'm outlining what that looks like to me. So I started outlining all the clouds that I thought I was seeing in this picture, and it soon became apparent that there's no clear outlining of the different clouds. Not only is there a million different clouds floating by, apparently, with different colors among them, there's actually different colors even within the same clouds. So whatever kind of crazy light effects are going on here, it just makes it impossible to make a clear separation among the different clouds. But there you go. It looks a bit messy now, but that is more or less outlining the different clouds floating by. Alright, but I am going to undo as far back as it lets me, because this just makes the screen look really cluttered. Alright, so I just wanted to outline this pink or purple object over here, which would seem to be on top of this short wall. And there's also one on the other side, which would also seem to be in the corresponding position on the short wall. I'll just redo those lines right here. And the way that I drew this, the further wall here is being covered up by this closer wall. Again, with this curve of the wall and of everything. This section right here would be where a person or where a being would walk through these two pink sensors or whatever these things are. So that's what it looks like to me. That's as much as I'm going to outline in this picture. So what do you guys think this is a picture of? Finally, this painting is a reconstruction of what that photo might have really been taking a picture of. And I painted over everything except for those six-sided lights and the areas immediately around them, because those already look very mysterious and interesting without changing them at all. But I did paint over everything else. And starting with the clouds, I gave them some color and some distinction to show more or less what I was interpreting in the photo as a million different colored clouds all floating by through a hazy air, apparently. So this is kind of an exaggerated, more colorful version of how I was interpreting the clouds in the photograph. Also, I tried to show a bit of light reflections in the clouds to show the light from the different sources around them, especially these six-sided orange lights. I gave the clouds around them some neon orange light reflections, but also for these couple of spotlights up here, which is kind of what it looked like to me in the photograph, and I'll be switching back to the photo after I explain everything. But it vaguely looked like there were a couple of spotlights shining through the hazy air at the top of the screen. Also, along the back wall, I darkened in this row of squares that I could just barely see behind the clouds, and I also darkened in this strangely shaped doorway that I mentioned. And by the way, this is not physically a painting, this is a digital painting. Still just using Sketchbook, and it has some cool features for applying color as paint and also for smearing around the paint that you've already applied. So, just to describe the rest of the painting, this is the floor right here, and I brightened it up and smeared the color around to hopefully make it look more like a solid round floor. This is the short wall that I tried to give some distinction and clarity to. This is the vertical wall that I'm running the cursor over right now, and then the darker section here is meant to be the top of the short wall, looking down on it. So we're looking down on this short wall here. And for this further wall, I matched up the colors so that this darker red is looking down on the top of both short walls. And then this lighter red is the vertical side of each wall. Same color over here. I took some liberty with the designs on these sensors, but that's just to make it clear that it was a machine with a futuristic design. So the shape was actually in the photo, and I just wanted to make it clear that it's meant to be mechanical sensors. And then again, this would be where a person would be walking through in between the two walls and through the two sensors there. And then this closer wall wraps up to hide the further wall. And everything seems to have a strange curve to it. Even the floor would seem to have a three-dimensional curve to it, as if it's not completely flat. This part looks like a lump that's higher, and then it would even seem to curve down till it hits the wall. And obviously it has a curved edge. So everything has a strange curve to it. The black is just the open air hallway itself, and then this dark red is just the overhang over this open air hallway. So that's about as clear as I could possibly make this picture. Do you guys think this is pretty accurate to what the original photo was taken a picture of? What do you guys think? Let me know.